we're going to go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, go ahead and type your questions into the questions area, and I'll answer questions periodically. And then at the end of our discussion, I'll unmute everybody and we can kind of go through and you can ask any questions that you have at that point as well. All right. So I'm going to start from this Transaction Desk Light tab. So I just went into North Star and then access Transaction Desk from there. And like I said, I'm going to start from a transaction. So we're going to click on the Transactions tab. And I'm using Transaction Desk Lite. You can use Pro or Lite to get into the same version of Authentisign. So I created a transaction for today, like I said. So I'm going to click on this Tech Tuesday test transaction and open this up. It's a listing transaction. So normally I would go through and fill out the information on my details page. Then I'm going to go to the Contacts tab right here. And I've already done this, but I went up to, I would like to add transaction contacts and added all the contacts to my transaction. And these will easily flow through to the participant section in Authentisign, and we'll see that in a bit. The next thing I'm going to do is click on the Forms tab. And under my Forms tab, I just added three forms. The listing contract, single family, residential, listing input form, and then I have a change form in here as well. So just 3 basic forms for our example today. And I did that through going to, I would like to add new forms. Remember, once you add your forms, because we're going through a transaction, you want to auto-populate those forms before you move on and fill in the information on the forms. So let's just say I went through and I clicked on each of these forms and filled out the information. The next thing that I can do is there's actually an Authentisign tab right here in the transaction. So that's going to take us to Authentisign through that transaction. So I'm going to click on the Authentisign button right here. You will notice that we also have an Authentisign button up at the top. This is for, if you want to call it the global version of Authentisign, so not for this particular transaction, for Authentisign within the entire system.
No password.
So what you're going to do then is, oh, excuse me, the Authentisign tab is also on the home page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this Authentisign tab. And then we have our Authentisign coming up. It's going to automatically bring in information from our transaction that we created. So the signing name is going to match up with the transaction name. Now, if you're doing a couple different signings for one transaction, it's a good idea to kind of customize the signing name so that it's something that you'll recognize. So right now we're doing the input forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say my client's name is Tech Tuesday. I'll use that. And then I'm going to follow it up by listing input forms. Okay, so I have Tech Tuesday in there, or the name of your client or the address of the property, something that you're going to recognize this particular signing as. And then we have listing input form as the forms that we're using. So we have 2 different participant orders in the system. We have sign inline and we have simulsign. Sign inline, it's going to send it to one participant. They're going to go ahead and sign it. And once they're done signing, it's going to go off to the next participant. So it's going to be in order of how you have your participants in Authentisign. Simulsign, it's going to send one email out to everybody at one time. So everybody's going to get a notification to sign. They can sign on their own time. And then once they are done signing, it's going to merge everything into one document. So there are certain situations where sign inline maybe will work better, and certain situations where simulsign will work better. So one thing that I can think of when you maybe want to use sign inline is if you have participants with the same email address, it just makes giving them instructions on when to click into their email and look for an email or who's going to get the email first when you're doing sign in line. For SimulSign, if you're in a tight time period where you have to have the document signed very quickly, this may work better if you have lots of participants. They can all sign in at one time, and then it's going to merge the document at the end. I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus sign next to advanced options now. And under advanced options, I have a couple different options here. I can set an expiration date. So I have a listing contract in here. So if my listing contract's starting on a certain day, if I want to make sure that I have that contract back in my hand so I can enter it into the system by a certain time period. So you can actually set an expiration date for the signing, and if they have not signed by that expiration date, you'll have to go through and create a signing again, which, you know, you may need to at that point because you might have to change the dates on the contracts and whatnot before they sign. So that's the expiration dates. If you don't expire a signing out, it'll be out there. It can be out there forever. There is another way to delete the signings that I'll show you a little bit later. So that's just something to be aware of. Also, we have reminders if you have somebody that is supposed to sign by a certain date or time. You can set reminder messages so you make sure that they sign by that date or time by getting a reminder every 4 hours or 6 hours, 8 hours, and whatnot. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is click on participants. So I click on this little plus sign over here. And under there I have a couple different options. So I have add new participant, I have transaction, and then the name of my transaction. So those are going to be the participants from that transaction. I have add from contacts. So these are my contacts that I have instanted, and you can also add yourself. In most cases, when you're starting from a transaction, you're going to grab the transaction contacts. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And then I have a little box up at the top. If I check this box, it's going to check everybody within the transaction. If you just want a couple individuals added, you can add them by checking the boxes. And here you'll see that we have a couple different options for participants. So I have, oops, I clicked the wrong one. Here we go. So I have the sellers that I actually picked here as participants. It's going to give me their email addresses. And right now I have them checked up as remote signers. So they're going to go through their own email and they're going to sign the document through their email. You'll also notice you have an option for in-person signers. In-person signers are actually going to be signers that are with you at your office. They're going to sign the document through your email address, and then you're going to put in a 4-digit code that you create in order to let the system know that you were present when they signed. We have reviewers. Reviewers are just going to read over the document, and once they've read over the document, they can say, yes, I approve this, or no, I do not approve this. And then we have CC only, and they're just going to get a copy of the document. So right now I'm just going to pick my 2 sellers out of here, and I'm going to click add. And because I have sign in line, I can switch. I selected sign in line so I can switch the order of the participants right here. One thing that's very important on this step is I have a little I here for information about this individual. If I click on that I, it's going to give me a spot where I can create a subject line and an email message for them. So if I want to make a custom subject line for my Authentisign, I can do that here and then type in the email address. I can also change the type of participant that they are. And here you'll see I can put in a signing pin if I'm doing in-person signing. Okay, so for right now I'm just going to cancel out of this. And then we always have that add button over on the side if we need to use it again. Okay, step 3, we're going to pick the document. So I'm just going to click on the plus sign next to that. And then I'm going to click on Text Tuesday Test Transaction. So that's the one that I'm working with. I can also select forms or documents from different transactions that I have in the system. If you use DocBox or Google Drive or OneDrive, you can select documents from there. I can upload a file from my computer. I can upload via fax, email, and I can also use a printer driver. So lots of options under here. For right now, I'm just going to click on Tech Tuesday transaction. And then I can select any forms or documents that I have within this transaction. I've actually used this transaction a couple different times to do signing, so I have things in my doc box right here that have already been signed. So for now, I'm just going to select the first three, which are forms still, and click Add. And that's going to add my documents. All right. So what we have now is we have our listing contract, residential listing input form, and my change form in here. So if I want to have them sign all these in this particular order, I can leave them as is. If I want to switch the order, I have little arrows right here. So if I want to make the single family residential listing form first, I can move that there. All right. And I can also click the Add button if I need to go back and add any other forms at a later date. The next thing I'm going to do is click on Design. And what you're going to do is just go through and make sure the signing blanks are in the right spot, first of all. I usually just scroll through the document. I like to line everything up at the end of the line so I can just drag and drop these. If you're on a tablet, you're going to click and hold the button down and then drag them to the correct spot. If you are on a computer, I can right click on these and I can add a name block, a timestamp or a date stamp if I need it. On a tablet, you're just going to click and hold and those options are going to come up for you. So let's just keep going through here. So if I scroll through, it looks like these are, for the most part, in the right spot here. I have automatic dates in there. To do an automatic date, you're just going to right click again and go to the date stamp button. And you'll see that it's only dragging over signing blanks for those participants that I added to the transaction. So the agent may have signing blanks on here, but I didn't add them to the signing at this point, so their signing blocks are not there. You can go back after you get to this point. If you click the back button, it's going to ask you if you want to save this or not, and you can save it and then add another participant if you forgot to add somebody at some point. Okay, now let's say I have most of my signing blocks on here, but I need to add a couple more. I have my signers right over here, and there's a little arrow down here, so I can choose between seller 1 and seller 2. And whoever is in blue up here, it's going to drag and drop different signing blanks for that individual only. So I'm under seller 1 right now, and I can drag and drop the sign here to the spot that I need it. I'll just put it right here for now. And then again, like I said, you can right click on it to add a date stamp, time stamp, or name block. And there's also a delete option under there. So I have a mandatory signature, optional signature, mandatory initials, optional initials, mandatory X, optional X. Radio buttons, if I drag this over, I can add multiple X's, circles, or check marks to a signing, and I can do up to 6 at a time. So if I have a section where they're needing to check everything off, I can add those. I can add today's date by dragging and dropping the date. Again, if I need to add a date for that signer, I'm going to want to right click on their name where it says sign here and add it that way. Signer's name, that's just going to add the printed name to it. Initial pages, if I click on this, I can have them initial multiple pages at one time. So I have initialing the bottom of the document, center, it's the size, and then I can pick who and which document. So those are the initial pages. And I can also drag over a text box. One thing I think of is marital status on the purchase agreement when they would have to fill out a text box. And so I can drag and drop that, and then it's going to ask me for instructions on that text box. So if it's a single line, multi-line, transparent, or what the number of characters are, it's always going to default to not required to fill out. So you want to make sure if it's a field that they need to for sure fill out before they complete the signing, that we make it required. And then the next step is just to, once we're done with this, oh, sorry, missed one. QR codes, if you have anybody that has QR codes, if I send them or put a QR code on their form, they can scan it with their phone, and it's going to log them into, allow them to log into their signing account, and they can actually go ahead and sign at that point. All right, I'm just going to click the arrow here. And we have, this is different options than I had yesterday, actually. So customize invitation, email, subject, and text. So that's how we can go back to that participant record and customize their invitation. And we also have the send invitation button. So say we already went through and we had the email invitation and everything in there. We can click on send invitations, and it's going to send it out. Okay, what I'm going to do is, and it says it successfully sent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up for questions at this point. We do, if you're interested, have a class at the association tomorrow. I believe it's from 1:30 to 3:30. That's going to be a 2-hour class on Authentisign, so we kind of delve into everything a little bit more during that class. So I'm going to go ahead and pull you off and mute. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask your questions. I do have a couple questions over here in the question box. Oops, let's see, can I unmute everybody here? I guess I have to click through here to unmute everybody here. If you don't have a question, if you want to go ahead and put yourself on mute, just so we don't get background noise, that would be great. A couple questions that I have in the question box here is, can you go over the radio buttons again and what their function are? So if I go,
yesterday?
if I go back into their radio buttons, if mute everybody again here. Radio buttons, if we go into the radio button thing again, we can add circles, we can add X's, or we can add check marks. So if there's a spot on the form, the spot that I think about is agency, where they're having to, you know, check a certain box for a certain option. You can add multiple of those boxes. So if there's 2 boxes that they have to check in a row, you can add that through radio buttons. And let me see here. Just going to go in here and reset this one quick so I can show you. Okay, so if I go back to the design step here, and then right here I have a bunch of check boxes. You would probably have this filled out, but this is just kind of an example here. So I can add that over there, and then I can say that I want them to be able to X 6 different spots and click continue, and then I can drag 6 different X's over to different spots that they can then X off. So that's radio buttons. Any other questions? There was a little bit of background noise, so if you just want to type any questions into the question area, that would be great. I did get another question. After my client signs all the documents, how do I send just the pages that I would like to send to the cooperating agents? You're going to do that through the Documents tab in your transaction. You can't necessarily send just the pages that you want to your cooperating agents, but you can select and add the different forms. So what it's going to do is once these are signed, it's going to take this residential listing input form and split that out from the listing contract and from the change form. So if I go, let me just get out of this page here. If I go back to my transaction, and go to the Documents tab, I have a couple documents that have already been signed, so I can just check the box in front of the document I want to send, and then I can email selected documents. So that's from the Documents tab of your transaction. Any other questions? There was another question about sending to cooperating agents. Do I put them in the CC or reviewer? That kind of depends. Generally speaking, you could put them in CC. If they don't, sometimes they'll have, a form to sign. So you'll then want to add them as a signer. So it kind of depends on the situation. You can add them as a CC only if you want them to get a final copy of the document. If you want to go ahead and do it this way and send them a final copy of the document by going through your transaction, you can do that as well. So lots of different options for sending to the cooperating agent. All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you for joining us today. Again, this is a recorded webinar, so if you have any questions that you run into at any point, give me a call. I can walk through those questions, and also we'll have the recording up on our training page in the members area. So thank you so much for joining, and have a great day.